Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I say good afternoon because this is my first podcast that I'm doing in the afternoon. I want to start by welcoming you and thanking you all for the continuous support that you have continued to show me on my podcast. The downloads are picking up. We have now been downloaded in 27 countries, and that is a great thing. I have a very special guest. You would have noticed the last two guests of mine, it's like I'm going back to my roots. And I want to introduce you to someone I met 11 or 12 years ago. That's how far back we go. His name is Geoff Schumann, and I will explain how we met. We met at a gig, a comedy show run by someone called Rudy Liquid. And I remember that night very well. This was before I became a military president. I performed as a civilian president. And it was in Housden, if I remember very correctly. And I remember Rudy Liquid introducing me as a cosmopolitan comedian. And I think at that time, Rudy wasn't sure how the gig was going to go because the audience wasn't the audience that I had played before. And Geoff was watching me that night. I know he was watching me because he spoke to me afterwards and we exchanged numbers, and he gave me what I would say one of my major gigs in the Black comedy circuit then. It was in Tabernacle, and I remember it very, very well. And I remember speaking to Geoff afterwards for two reasons. One, I got a bad review that night. And I remember Geoff saying to me, "These are just opinions, my friend. Get it out of your brain." He might not remember this. And he also said that I was a talented performer and I should keep going, wanting to know how long I have been performing. And I have to tell you, those words stuck in my head for years to come. Never ever forgot that advice he gave me. But I wouldn't say we parted ways. You know how life is. Life takes us in funny directions. I moved into the mainstream circuit and I continued to perform, but I always knew Geoff was behind the scenes. I want to read his biography, but let me tell you, it is very, very long. It's like an real African, it's almost like a thesis. But I would do my best.
It's like a dictator giving a sentence to the opposition.
Yeah. Geoff Schumann, entertainer, broadcaster, trainer, lecturer. Geoff Schumann is known by many as one of the leading African Caribbean comedians in Britain. The former comprehensive school teacher and qualified youth worker has smoothly moved from one public arena to another. Geoff, a trained humanities school teacher and qualified youth work trainer. Geoff taught in the London Borough of Ealing, Hammersmith and Fulham, Brent and Lambeth for 7 good years. Geoff also taught media studies for a year in an adult education college. After a spell of teaching in Africa and the Caribbean, he was a visiting lecturer to Reading. You see, my African is there. I say Reading. Reading University.
Reading, my brother. Reading. You know. Yeah, what's the time with the palm wine? You know.
Schumann then began to pursue a career in the media and stand-up comedy. Geoff's media career began on a community radio station in 1994. He then went on to train at the BBC Radio School based in White City. In 1996, he became a weekly contributor on the BBC GLR radio station, later renamed BBC London. Within 9 months, Geoff Schumann was snapped up by Choice FM Radio to host Breakfast Show. And I remember when I used to go to A-levels college, I used to listen to him. I never knew that we were ever going to meet. I always used to listen to his sketch.
You mean when you went to high college?
Yeah, high college.
That's the one, my friend. High college.
High college. Geoff was rewarded with Outstanding Contribution in Comedy Award in 2001, Black Comedy Awards. Geoff was also voted Youth Personality of the Year. Look, there's a string of achievements, but most importantly, television appearances. And I'm not talking about Ben TV, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Ben
TV. My brother, I know the people who run the place.
I know there's nothing.
This is my disclaimer. This is Obonjo talking about Ben TV. Not me, my friend. No. I love it. I love it.
I can get away with that. I can get away with that. But
okay,
his comedy skills have been seen on Club Plus, Nights Out at the Empire, The Real McCoy Show, Get It On, and The Stand-Up Show. He was also a contributor on BBC's One Tribute to Lenny Henry and Sky One Celebrities Behaving Badly. His acting skills were seen in Bill, Minder, and Casualty. In August 19, look, there's just a long...
My friend, move on, my friend. The people are not interested. They want to get to the substance. They don't want to talk. They don't want to talk nonsense.
But most importantly, Geoff is currently proud to be the chair of his late great friend's charity, the Felix Dexter Foundation, and that is really important to mention.
Proud moment for me.
Sorry?
Very proud moment for me.
Yeah, very proud.
A very good friend of mine, a very well-established comedian who helped me on occasions on my journey when he didn't need to. And so when he passed away, I took it very personal. I was abroad working and I flew him from Romania so I could go to the hospice to see him before he passed. And he said to me, whatever you do, Geoff, make sure they don't forget me.
Yeah.
So I'm trying.
And they haven't forgotten him. His memories linger on. And I remember watching him at Hackney Theatre. And I think that's where he did a skit there on The Accountant, if I remember correctly. But
yeah.
That was
he did the skit everywhere. I mean, once it became established on television, Felix was able to sell out arenas. I mean, he did a show at the Broadway Theatre in Catford, which used to be called the Old Lewisham Theatre. He did one night on the Saturday. It sold out. So he put an extra night on the Sunday. That sold out. He could have done the Monday, but he had to go to Manchester with myself. We were filming the A4, so he couldn't do the third night. But that's how big he grew in prominence as a performer. Excellent.
Well, okay, Geoff, let's start with, especially from your career history. You were a teacher and then you moved over to stand-up comedy. What made you make that change?
Well, President, as you know, with Laughter Republic, you stand in front of a group of people, an audience, as you do, and then you rise up the military ranks, as you did, and then you complain about the opposition, and then when you get into power, you abolish the opposition. So with myself, from the days I was a student, for me, I was like the class comedian, but I was not particularly, I was reasonably intelligent. And in those days, used to be in what's called streaming sets, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I was generally in sets 1 and 2. And most of my friends who used to misbehave were in sets 3 and 4. I always used to want to be with them because the geeks in sets 1 and 2 used to bore me senseless. But anyway, I then realized I had I wouldn't call it a gift. I was a troublemaker. And with that trouble, I used to make people laugh. So as I went through my stages of college to uni, I always felt compelled to go to the drama department, President. I always felt that I wanted to be some sort of a performer. And when I finished studying, there was an opportunity to train to become a teacher, which meant you stood in front of people. The only difference between a school audience and a comedy audience, you do stand up. The difference is if the kids heckle you, you can give them detention. As with those who pay money to come and see you, they can boo, get off. And so I always knew I wanted to do some kind of performance. And when I was 20, I won a national Black Writers competition for a poem that I wrote and a little storyline. And then I was then stuck between, do you want to be a writer, do you want to be a performer? And in those days, there weren't many things or many role models outside of Lenny Henry. There wasn't really anything on television that I could aspire to. And then The Real McCoy came, and the first 2 series were okay. I remember a guy called Leo Chester, who's now called Leo Mohammed, being pretty outstanding. And a woman called Colette Johnson used to make me laugh. But outside of that, there really wasn't anything that I look at and say everything was in America. Richard Pryor, everything was in America. George Carlin, Godfrey Davis. It was mainly America. Paul Mooney. It was mainly the Americans. I had these cassettes and I had vinyls, and I was going to the States looking to steal as much material as I could. And I was still writing until eventually I decided to take the plunge and try a bit of stand-up, because I didn't come from an acting background. I went to a weekend drama school, but I didn't train. But I knew I could, like Will Smith. You can do something if you're given the opportunity, as you yourself know. You have that gift. So I then decided that I went to the Comedy Store one night with some students. My A-level group were only like 3 years younger than me. I was teaching at 21. Went to the 291 Club. Saw a Rudy Liquid back in the day, absolutely dire death. And when I say die, it's on television. I thought, wow, I'm never going to let that happen to me. And I got to know two comics on the circuit at the time, Marcus Simmons and Roger D. And Marcus Simmons was a headline act on the mainstream circuit. So I went to see him a couple of times. I went to the Tabernacle Comedy Club run by Ian Thompson at the time, and then just decided to give it a go. But I always knew I could write. And so within a year of my debut, I wrote a review show. I've always had the ability to analyze and look at things and then type and write a sketch. Some will find it funny, some won't. It's subjective. But I've never had to rely on stealing other people's material and waiting for the phone to ring. So I then saw the Royal McCoy, saw that it was like a private members club. It's hard to get into comedy, as you know, Obonjo. Not everyone's going to help you, especially if you feel. I mean, you're lucky. You had you were character based. I guess only character comedians could feel threatened by you. But you know, if I did an African character, I used to carry a briefcase. I think if in 93, 94, you'd approached me with a Obonjo, I would have been relaxed, but I would have been like, well, as long as you don't make him a student in exile. That's what I was doing. There was all this kind of protectionism that people did. And I wasn't a threat to anybody until in 93, I did a show at Hammersmith Town Hall, 1,000 seats.
Wow.
I sold out 1,000 seats. Never been on television before, hadn't done any mainstream radio. And so the people behind me at the time knew that I had something was working for me. And I never looked back, and I got myself on the circuit. And by 94, I did a show at a place called the Civic in Peckham. It's now a church. And other people before me, Jefferson Whitfield, Felicity Ethnic, there was a pantomime there. So the guy who was running the place, the programmer, Ian Thompson, he was asking the comedians to step off the circuit and do a review show. And of all of them, I was the one who was untried and untested. But he came to see me a couple of times before he took the risk and said, "You've got something, get a writer." I said, "No, I write." He said, "You write?" I said, "Yeah, I write. I write sketches." He said, "Right, go away and bring me back something." And I came back with a thing called Shades of Schumann, different characters I had. And we sold out 3 nights. The following year, I warmed up for Felix before he went to Edinburgh. And I got picked up by the Royal McCoy to do a bit of stand-up. And then I started writing. I spent a lot of time writing with Felix, because Felix was a very gifted mimic, a gifted comic. But he didn't really do sketches like characters. So my name was Ghanaian Greg, West African student. Why do we West Africans, we do our homework in the library. The West Indian does his homework in the canteen. Why is that? The only thing the West Indian and the West African have in common is the word West. So I was always getting around ridiculing from my time as a student and the differences and the disparities between Africans and West Indians, comically. And then one night, Felix said to me, "Look, a guy called Terry Jervis from the Royal McCoy is coming to see me." So I knew the Royal McCoy. Felix didn't really know the program. I knew the Royal McCoy. I went, "If you get into the cast," he goes, "Well, I don't know what he's offering me, but he knows I do stand up. He wants to see me." So I went with Felix to the Comedy Store that night. Him and Terry met in a room. I sat outside. On the way home, Felix said to me, he wants me to develop some characters. And then herein lied that I did characters. And we talked about nightclub bouncer and all that. Do you know what I mean? Shut your mouth. You know, and very posh. Because we've both been to university, although Felix didn't complete, I always said it'd be great to have a black character that wasn't in touch with the black community. And hence Douglas was born, which was the posh barrister, you know, rice and pars and the blood cloth and the mashed down Babylon. We started to write. And he acknowledged that. And when there was an opening on the Royal McCoy, he got me that. When he did his pilot, he got me in for that. When there was a script read for someone to play his brother, he got me in for that. So so my transition, I was always doing stand-up, Obonjo, but in front of a class of school, Hale and Pace were teachers, the two great comics, and other people who have had varied professions have taught or been in the medical profession, and you just stand in front of an audience basically. And so it really wasn't difficult for me. I always knew I wanted to do some form of stand-up, and the difference between me and many others, I set up my own comedy company.
Mm.
So I went and booked community centres. Couldn't get into theatres. Didn't know who you were. I would persuade. If I met you, Obonjo, and you said you were the caretaker of the local association in St Albans, I would find out what the rate was to hire it. I would then book on one of the members of the Royal McCoy who were known to the audience, and it'd be me, myself, and a few of my troops. And from those people, Richard Blackwood came, Todju the Great came. Yeah, so that, you know, these are people who acknowledge that I had a part in their journey, as you do with me, and I'm very grateful. But make no mistake, I didn't book any of you guys because I wanted you to praise me. I booked you because you're talented. Simple as that.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions for you. One is, which do you prefer? Do you see yourself more as a writer rather than a performer?
I'm really a writer, but my ego says that I look like Denzel Washington, so I need to be I'm sexy, I'm attractive, I'm not bald. I mean, earlier you said about going back to your roots. Well, you can see I lost all my roots. I would like to be a writer performer, but I think reality is that, you know, when you reach my age and you have my sort of look, the nightclub bouncer or the one who wants to rape the inmate in prison, there's not, you know, nobody wants to see me take my clothes off. I'm never going to get a leading man role. So, writer.
And in terms of the challenges within some call it the urban comedy, I prefer to call it black comedy circuit. If there is one called the black comedy circuit, there's been lots of challenges. And what's your view in terms of the state of that industry at the moment? If there is,
but it's difficult for all comedy. I've never called it urban. Yeah. Urban is a term that was used by white people to appropriate and steal black culture. Marketeers did that. So I've always called it the black or African and Caribbean circuit. I've had no desire to want to cross over. You know, I can really get it if a white person comes to watch me do stand-up, Obonjo, and struggles. Oh, well, he's always talking about black and white stuff. I mean, you know, I can really understand that, because when I see Jack Whitehall and some of these other white comics, I sit there in disbelief and think, I haven't laughed once yet. I can't relate to any of that material. It doesn't make me laugh whatsoever. But I have to respect that everybody else is laughing, because they can pay homage and they can understand what's being. I mean, the one who kills me, one's pretty funny. They both got the same Christian name. One used to do a show on BBC Three, like a topical weekly show. White guy. Difficult. I can't remember his name, but there's two mainstream white comics who both got the same Christian name. One I find extremely funny, and the other one I just sit. And every time I see him anywhere, I sit and think to myself, "Wow, Russell Kane, Russell Howard." I think absolutely. Mark Thomas, top drawer. Russell Kane, I just look at and think, "Wow, really?"
But people are laughing.
You know, I love him to come and do my audience.
But people are laughing.
Let's see if he gets out alive. It's just not for me. Doesn't mean he's not funny, but I guess his audience, if they saw me, would be like, nah. I don't understand the cultural references.
Let's talk about the crossover, because it's really interesting. Because I remember one of the things I used to do as part of, you know, moving up the ranks is I used to run a Somalian gig. It was called a shisha gig. All right, Styler used to run it, and then I took it over for a little while, just in one venue. And I remember that white comics just found it really difficult going into a shisha bar to make that audience laugh. And for me, you know, I've been so naive about this. You get to learn as a result, but I always just felt funny is funny. You know, you can go anywhere and make people laugh. And you said, you're not, I know there are a few black comics who rather prefer to stay in the black comedy scene. They won't cross over. Why is that? Is that?
Well, maybe like me, you feel that your material, you've done stuff and you feel that your material won't cross over. I'm just thinking, Obonjo, you know, you're funny. You know, there are African dictators. You will make cross references and faux pas that you can't understand about freedom. And you know, what is liberty? I understand it. You know, so you'll make references that are quite funny and charming. I don't find. I went to a comedy club once to watch a couple of comedians I knew called Jefferson and Whitfield, who were miles ahead of everybody else on the black circuit when I arrived. They even set up the first black comedy school. And I watched them and they were like, wanker! You know, they were using references that white people don't understand. There was a black comic on the bill the same night, and he was talking about, yeah, you can relax. My mates are outside breaking into your cars. And that's when white people laughed. Anything that was to do with criminality or big penises, things that they expect from a black performer.
Yeah.
I got to know a guy called Andrew Morell. I helped him on this journey. And he was a sophisticated, intellectual comedian. I'm not saying that's for everybody. Unlike one or two others who were on the white circuit, who were stealing from the black circuit and taking it on the white circuit. One of them should remain nameless. Everyone knows who he is. I didn't want to do that. Obonjo, I absolutely wasn't, never ever going to do that and prostitute myself. And there were some performers that left the black circuit, went over and were doing the white circuit, very successful, were making cultural references in relation to themselves and doing well. But I found that transition. I did a gig in Liverpool with a guy called Ishmael Thomas, who was a stand-up comedian from the Royal McCoy. He was in the original series, part of the double act, Curtis and Ishmael. And everywhere we went, black circuit, he would always mash up the place. And we did this kind of rock gig in Liverpool. And my God, I'm glad he went first. Because it didn't work. And the promoter goes to me, yeah, you haven't got to go on, and gave us our money. But I noticed that when Ishmael said to them, yeah, if I talked about nicking your equipment and blah, 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 then they started laughing. And Ishmael said, fuck it. Excuse me, my friends, F it. I'm not about that.
Yeah.
And when I was getting ready to go out, I was going to give them the same thing. And the guy could see that. I was prepared to tell them about their rock selves. And so I then realized that that wasn't for me, Obonjo. I find it very painful. I wrote a sketch called The Mainstreamy Code, what it is to be black, to have to make it to work on the white circuit, like the Da Vinci Code. And, you know, I look at certain programs on television where you've got the big, large black person just laughing loud. And you're sitting there thinking, did I just miss something? What's so funny? Are you there because you're a token of fun for everybody to laugh at? Or are you there because, like Obonjo, you really got things to say with your character? You've got a talent. And I think it's about getting used to the fact that people like different things. I know that my missus wouldn't, if someone came back to her and told her, you know what, I saw your man at this gig, all he talked about was he stole stuff, he nicked things, that he's got a big penis and you can't, and she'd look at me and say, well, you don't say those things privately. Why do you think you have to go into a white audience and talk about those things? And my argument would be, because that's what they expect. The newer generation that I love, Dame Baptiste, Nabil Obinesh, you know, they're talking politics.
Yeah.
And whether they'll get through or not is different, because unlike Big Nasty, you know, they've got something to say.
Yeah.
They don't reinforce stereotypes. I like Mo Gilligan. I do. But there are others who've got through, and you just think to yourself, wow, and Felix couldn't get a series, and Felix didn't get a series. This person's been tried 2 or 3 times, and is she really that funny? And because we used to write, and he was a writer, quite often the stuff didn't commute with their expectations of what a black person would do. I was Felix, and we looked at this character, and I said to him, I don't want to write on that. And he said to me, the mere fact you don't want to write on it means we shouldn't do it. I goes, no, try it. And he did a sketch about a gay rapper. It wasn't that. It's when I looked at the contents of it, I just thought we can go deeper with that and attack sexuality and black male behavior. The script editor he had just wanted the salacious, like, oh, this and that. I said to myself. And the funny thing is, when we filmed it as part of his pilot, it didn't go out because it wasn't funny.
Wasn't funny.
That was a white script editor. Again, through their own eyes and their lens, that's how they see black performers. I'm honestly, Obonjo, you know me. That's why I set up my own comedy club. I do what I do. I can't do it. If it means I never work again, I've got no problems, but I can't do it. You know, I am that black performer who goes out and sees an all-white audience. I think to myself, should I say not guilty now or later? Should I stand in front of the dock? I find it very difficult. I'm not your Negro. I'm not going to tell you about the things that you understand of black people. I am going to talk about you. If I talk about slavery and control and inequality, which you might think, well, I came out for a night of comedy. I didn't come out for this. What's this guy doing? Well, I'm afraid to say that's just me. I'm not your Negro. I can't. You know, I wrote a thing called Josie in the Multicolour Weave, and my missus is quite critical. But when she came to see it, got a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Women on top. You know, thumbs up. If it's bad, she'll tell me. She'll say, well, babe, you know how people tell you in a nice kind of way. I know I'll be told, you know, and you need sometimes to have that kind of person to tell you that doesn't work. Don't embarrass all of us. That's cool.
I've got another question for you. This is more of another crossover, because there are also black comics who walk in the mainstream circuit who find it difficult to cross over into
black gigs. The funny thing is, I think it's an illusion. I remember two people, one called Matt Bays. I don't know if he's still around, probably is. Matt did a gig for me one time. It was all black, and he was like, oh, I don't know about this. I was, Matt, just be yourself. And he came out and he stormed it. Stormed it. And the one I love is a woman called Ava Vidal. I booked her tour 3 times. And the black audience are like, why don't we know her? Who is she? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, she's absolutely superbly funny. But something tells them, well, am I going to be black enough? Is my material going to transfer? Well, you know, you can talk about, you know, making love or having sex, and the mainstream talk about shagging it and jizz. I mean, I saw Irish comic Patrick Kilty. He was hosting something on Channel 4, Friday night special or something. Ava Vidal got me some free tickets. I was gone by the break. I just couldn't get into the back. Do you know what? Everyone around me is laughing. So what do I know? That's what people enjoy. What I like to do is to get them in front of my audience. Challenges. The best one I ever saw, Obonjo, before we move on, we become very good friends. Many years ago, there was a show at the Empire. It was a Friday night hosted by a comedian. It had special guests on. And one particular night, a white comic came on, died of death. But the second white comic was a magician comedian called John Lennon. Now, John was the original host of the Comedy Store. He's in the record books. Good friends now. But John's opening line, I still remind him to this day, killed me. He came on, he went, all right, ladies and gents, I'm the other white guy on the bill. And everybody cried. And I said, John, what, you know, have you done many black audiences? It's not really. No. But I'd seen the other guy struggle when my receptacle told me I better go out there before I even try anything. He stormed it. I book him all the time. Any audience I have. John Lennon is what you call funny. Doesn't matter about it. He's just funny. And Todju the Great. Todju's funny in front of mainstream audiences. Sometimes his humor's a bit too racy for black audiences. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, there are those who can, providing they're using their own material, not other people's material, there are those that can do the black circuit and the white circuit. It's not been something that, you know, Dane Baptiste could comfortably move between both. Uri Snyder, although I haven't seen him for a long time, I would assume he probably does. But I'm not looking for, you know, the new cats around are doing very well, great at what they do. And, you know, I'll be the old man in the corner just writing it. And then if someone likes what I do, then that's great. But you're not going to find me talking about my penis is 20 times the size of a white man's, and I'm a stand-up thief. And I've got all these children. I'm not married. You know, I'm not. That isn't my life anyway. But sometimes you have to talk about things that will connect to an audience, and so it's almost like you're encouraged to talk about being a criminal and being involved in illegal activity. I like talking about race.
Because I remember that was many years ago in terms of your tabernacle gig.
Tabernacle.
Tabernacle.
The one is, my friend, I've been in this society so long, you can't pronounce. Look at you. They're going to hit an arrow. Hit an arrow.
But you had such a very large audience, and am I right in saying you still have that fan base? And based on the lockdown, how have you been able to keep in contact?
No, I've been lazy. I mean, I was doing a show on a Sunday, getting 150 odd people to tune into me doing a live little talking show. Because I was also known, you know, whilst I love comedy, I've got a reasonable intellect. I studied politics, so I like to talk about politics. I'm not an actor on radio. I'm not following anybody's brief. I was offered an MBE once, and I thought, why would I want to be a member of the British Empire? When you understand history and what it means, and you've read enough, then you just know what you will and what you won't tolerate. Myself, Benjamin Zephaniah, Professor Gus John. It's like asking, you know, and forgive the analogy, no, forgive me. It's like, would you let a paedophile babysit? You know, it's that deep. Would you let a racist run your social media for you? You just wouldn't do it. You know, would women allow a man to be the head of their unit? You know, these are would a gay and lesbian unit allow a heterosexual to speak on their behalf? Unless, you know, when I was at the BBC, the black unit was run by a white woman. So there's this level of disparity that you have to challenge. I'm outspoken. It makes me unpopular. I know that, but I'm real. And as long as I'm real to myself, you know, I don't go out. You know, I don't. I'm talking to you on a podcast, and so I've said some of the things today I've never said before. But what have I got to lose? If I was in an environment, I'd say the same thing. You know, I don't begrudge anybody what they do. I love a white comedian called Mark Thomas, quite political, magnificent. His level of detail, his eye for things, just fascinating. Then I like a guy called Terry Alderton, who's not political in any kind of way. There's no kind of madness of him. I like what he does. I love Russell Howard. Okay, no. But again, that's just me, because I can't connect with them. I love John Cleese. Because I can't connect with some of them, with some of the, you know, I went to a place with a brother Nabil, who was on Britain's Got Talent, took them one night to Theatre Royal Stratford East, they used to do a Monday night comedy club. Saw a white comic who was just trying out, and he killed me. He was really funny. His opening line, which I won't say now, because that was his copyright, and unlike certain people, I don't steal people's material. What I said to him, you know, I've only been around, he said, this is my 5th gig. I don't know where he is now, but genuinely funny, genuinely brilliant. So, you know, Obonjo, there are performers who, because my feeling is that generally what black people like and find funny, white people don't find funny. And what white people find funny, black people don't find funny. So if you look at the recent offerings of Steve McQueen's series, the 5 or 6 of them, the one that black people detested the most was the Lovers Rock one. Yeah. What was the one that white people gave the award to? The Lovers Rock one. You know, I've never been to a black party where the hostess gets dragged into the garden and the guy tries to rape her. Never, ever. I know there's an artistic license, but when people see those types of things, my brother, you've been to Horsham, you've been into Sussex, where we're not there. We did a gig one time in Sussex, and they wouldn't let me in. The guy sort of said, "Well, can I ask you who you are?" And straight away my back was going up. I said, "Is this the stage entrance?" He goes, "Yeah, who are you?" So I'm performing tonight. And of course, in those days, I was just a name on the flyer. He pulled the flyer out, didn't see me. He said, "Who are you?" I said, "That's me there, second from the bottom." He went, "Oh, all right, okay then." But I could see straight away, he thought I'd come to burgle the place and whatever. So I then talked about my experience to an all-white audience that night. 50% went with it and laughed. The other 50% were like, "Well, I would have done the same. I knew that many blacks around here. I would have thought you maybe would come to steal something." It's that level of non-ambiguity that I find very difficult. And the kind of people that get chosen to go into television to represent us. Honestly, Obonjo, you know, if you started talking about stealing and killing people in your act, this is going to sound terrible. I guarantee you'll get more traction because it's what white people understand. Because you're a fairly articulate performer and you do think of the consequences of what you say, you're going to struggle, my brother. You're going to struggle. Although you haven't so far, but you know you could have been on television if you made your act more sexual, more degrading, more talking about African corruptness, and Obonjo, you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're talking about.
And so it's best I keep quiet before someone calls me jealous.
You spoke about being outspoken, but don't you think comedy is about comedy has to have a purpose? Comedy is about educating people.
Yes, if you're Mark Thomas, absolutely. If you're Jeremy Hardy, absolutely. Jack, of course, your persona. Ben Elton, talking about the class system. But when you're black and Lenny's been the role model, what was political about Lenny Henry? Even when he changed and said it was his white wife, Dawn French, that made him change. We would sometimes, I would go to comedy shows with Felix. Hackney Empire, for example, Lenny Henry sold out 95% white audience. But the black audience were like, I remember leaving Hackney Empire one night, not really satisfied, but I just thought, Felix, you're a lot funnier. It wasn't about brushing Felix's ego. The African characters that we were doing, you know, Joshua Yellow, what African speaks like that? Katanga, my friend. And as you get older and you come into a sense of reality, you know, and when white people are driving past and they kind of shout out, Katanga, Katanga, you're thinking,
where they get that from?
Yeah, so when Felix got the African character, I remember we sat in my front room, so that, you know, it may or may not work, but these are the kind of things that we need to go after. We need to talk about Jamaicans and West Indians and whatever. And bam! The night we filmed it, it was filmed at Television Centre. I had my own gig in my own area, which was sold out. But I got a telephone call because people knew me from the university circuit, knew Garni and Greg. In fact, a member of the Real McCoy cast called me and said, brother, that African character you do. I said, yeah. He goes, how long have you been doing it? That's where I started. And he said to me, I think you're going to find the new season of the Real McCoy very interesting. And so Felix told me it went down a treat and thanked me. Didn't get a writing credit for it. But what he did, he started taking me in. So I met a guy called Bill Wilson who put me in the program to do stand-up. But again, mine was Ghanaian, his character was Nigerian. What can you say? So when you got the power of the pen, and the pen is mightier than the sword in our industry, it is tough, Obonjo. If it hasn't happened to you yet, somebody will come along and mimic Obonjo.
Oh, it's happened.
Change the name. Change the name.
Don't start me off.
What I'm just saying, and put it in a sketch-based series. And you might then be forced to take action until they bow down and realise, you know, I am not your Negro.
I'm not your Negro.
Obonjo, I'm happy.
I
paid my money. I did the things I was supposed to do.
So, what's your view about the future of black comedy in the UK?
It all depends. The future's very bright in terms of on television. You've got Judy Love, Mo Gilligan. People are being given opportunities because of the whole diversity and take your knee off my neck movement. Alison Hammond I find very difficult to watch. It doesn't mean she's not talented. She came from that reality program, but it's like we killed off Rusty Lee. Then she reappeared with Ainsley Harriott without breasts. And I'm still to work out what Alison Hammond's big skill is, other than shouting loud. I mean, very loud, and laughing loud. And if you've not seen it, take a look at it. But view it through my lens, Obonjo. Don't view it from, this is just entertainment. Just view it from, what is the talent? Let's remove the loud laughing and the loud shouting. And that's the talent. That is what it is. And you've got to respect what people think is black talent, or what they think. And then when you come along and you know you're the opposite of that, but that's what they see and that's what they believe is, you know, that's why Angela Marr, for all the great things she's done as a performer, as a director, they've never not quite known what to do with that, Angie. Because Middle England, well, there's a black articulate woman who's not going to be laughing loud and sounding inarticulate. What do we do with her? Like, what do we do with the drunken sailor? What do we do with Felicity Ethnic? Brilliant improviser. Whether she's in costume or out. I mean, there could be an incident outside a venue where Felicity is about to perform, and Felicity could go on stage and talk about that incident, make everybody laugh for 10, 20 minutes. Yeah, how close is she towards television?
No, nobody even. I know her in the circuit, but she's not well.
That's what happened. But people are coming through. Mo's been given that opportunity. Big Nasty been given that opportunity, and others will come through and not be given their opportunities. You know, I think one of the funniest comedians I've ever seen. In fact, the only comedian I ever saw, I went to Edinburgh to cover the festival, the Richard Pryor Comedy Award, many years ago for the BBC. And I saw Stephen K. Amos for the first time. Genius. I saw him on a Tuesday night. I went back to see him on the Wednesday night, and it was 2 sets of different material. And what I then said was, if I was in television, the same way you have Barry Moore and Vernon Kay.
Mm.
Give Stephen K. Amos a game show.
Mm.
I gave him a sketch show.
Yeah,
That didn't necessarily work.
Yeah, it didn't work.
So,
but no, it was terrible.
But if you gave him, because he's the speed of his thought and brains.
Mm.
But now, he's black, he's gay. I'm sure he ticks all the diversity boxes, but it's almost like, well, you had your time.
Mm.
You had your chance. Stephen is absolutely, if he gets to see this podcast, I'm telling everybody, if you've never seen Stephen K. Amos, you haven't lived. Absolutely brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see Stephen K. Amos go on before Russell Kane. Let's see if Russell Kane survives after. If Russell Kane can go before Stephen K. Amos, I guarantee Stephen K. Amos will still the show. Again, that's my opinion. Russell Kane's a big TV star, he's a big whatever. But when I see him, it's straight switch.
I shared the bill with Stephen K. Amos at the Stand in Edinburgh.
Okay.
So I went on before him, and I got the impression that I remember someone saying to me, "Oh, this is going to be tricky because you're both from Nigeria, and you're going to make Nigerian references."
See what I'm saying? They won't say you're both females,
but
menstrual jokes, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
they won't do that. Us,
two black guys in the same lineup going to talk about being black. But but yeah, this has been great. You know, the title of the podcast is called "If Comedians Rule the World." If you were in charge of the world, Geoff, and I know you're very outspoken, but this is, I give you. What I should have said is that I am learning to give people freedom of speech. So whatever you say here is not going to be edited. So
yeah. The first thing I would do, every white comic that's on television, I put them in front of a black audience. So you get to feel, let me see if your material transfers. When I watch Live at the Apollo, I see a lot of black comedians.
Mm.
A lot of them I do like. Don't get me wrong, I like.
Mm.
I like how they have to deal. I love Marlon.
Mm-hmm.
If you know Marlon, very good.
Mm.
Very good comic.
Mm.
In fact, all of them. I love Prince Abdi. They're all good comics. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Who have to then go onto the white circuit. I mean, Abdi's maintained his exterior and talks about his culture. They're very funny. It's just a great comedian. I love him. But I can remember I hosted a gig for Hackney Empire in 2000 or maybe 1998, and Jenny Eclair on the glasses.
Mm-hmm.
She was the Edinburgh Award winner.
Mm-hmm.
She's got talking backstage, and I said, "What would you do if the audience was all black?" She said, "I'd shit myself." Harry Hill was on that night. I was a compere. Harry Hill was on that night. Very good. He'd done black audiences. Terry Alderton had done black audiences, but again, talked about smoking weed and things that they think will connect. John Lennon just does his routine.
I tell you someone who I've gigged with, who kills it at black gigs, Jeff Innocent.
Jeff Innocent. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very funny. I mean,
absolutely.
You can do it,
and you can make race references.
Yeah.
Look how I look. Do you know what I mean? You can do things. Like I say, Lennon kills it. Then you got Kevin J, who's very good, but he's also white. So
Kevin J has not been able to cross over to the white
circuit. Absolutely.
That's really
there you're up against the creme de la creme of white comics who know that market. As we're on the black circuit, we're content and happy with somebody white who's talks about our references, like Elvis Presley. You find a white person that supposedly can sing like us.
Yeah,
that's it. Gone clear. White soul singer, absolutely gone clear. For us, it's got to be a lot of personal sacrifice to make it in that world. So you give the classic example. Kevin J's hot property on the black circuit.
Hot
on the white circuit. On the white circuit, they're like, he's talking about weave, and anybody white, trust me, as long as you can make, and let me say this for the record, Kevin J is very good at what he does.
Yeah.
Anybody white who comes onto the black circuit, more and younger, is a good comedian. People, my audience, complained that every time we see her, it's, I'm from South London, I might not be, the complaints I got over a 5-year period, every time she does the same thing. Every time, and I was like, but people like it. If you don't like it, and then suddenly some of my audience stopped coming. Whatever. But she's not a house. She told me herself. It goes much better for her on the black gigs
Than in the white
circuit. But then look at the female Sarah Pastor. Look at the white comedians she'd be up against. But don't make no mistake, Maureen Young is very good. I like her personally. But sometimes you have to sit back and take what the audience tell you. But yeah, but if they're Kevin J and Maureen Younger, for whatever reasons, they're headline acts. On the
brother, let's talk about African comedy now. Now we're talking about Black UK comedy. What's your view about certainly Nigerian comedy, Nigerian comedians, all those sketches that you see?
Superb,
yeah.
Clever. Prefer it in some respects to Caribbean comedy, because Nigerian comics and Nollywood and Nigerian comedians, they're not really recycling things they've taken from the white circuit and put it on the black circuit with the spin. I've seen some material that others do. I'm like, that's an old Dave Allen sketch. Dick Henry did that. But all you've done is you just put a twist on it and suddenly made it Caribbean. There was some very good, there's these two guys who are about to do a thing called the Sportscaster sketch. I think when that comes out, people will see, my friend, you say it your way.
I say it my way.
And also the market in Nigeria. You know, Kevin J is huge in Nigeria.
Yes.
I don't know, but I've been told that. See, if you look at the successful groups in this country, economically, Nigerians are a powerhouse. They make money together. They tend to marry each other. They tend to stay within their, Igbo, Yoruba, Fulani. They tend to stay within the realms of their community, not begging anybody anything. So if you've got a good African gig, and then you've got that following. Gini Ashway deserves it. Toju, brilliant. Swears a bit too much probably for Nigerian taste, but when Toju does his Nigerian, Toju was the first Nigerian comedian that made me cry. I had to put him on the circuit. Within 3 months, Toju was on the Royal McCoy. Hadn't been around that long. But that's how good his impersonations and his African accent, my friend. You're asking me who was calling? Tell your mother, it was me. And I can resonate with that kind of stuff. Very clever stuff. When Toju talked about, I begged Toju once because I steal one of his skits for a sketch. He gave me permission. I've never done it, but it was based on parents' evening. Oh, Obonjo, when I say funny, Toju went, so I'm afraid to say, Mrs. Omokoro, your son, he tends to like making people laugh. What's the mom? Oh, he likes to tell jokes. Yes, he distracts others. Oh, he likes to distract others. And we find him too disruptive. Oh, he's disruptive. Well, he wants to be the class comedian. Oh, he wants to tell jokes and be comedian. Well, let me tell you, when he gets home, I have a few punchlines of my own. Just a genius. Just a genius. Uncontrollable, like a lot of comedians. You can't tell them what to do.
Yeah.
They're like dictators. That pass through my hands, or I've assisted. Toju, for me, has always been the most able. Because what he could do with his vocal capabilities, but he's also the most difficult. He wouldn't listen to anybody. But just always swear, and is what it is.
Next question. What's your view on naturally funny comedians? These are comedians who've never been to comedy school.
Well, depends what you mean by naturally funny. You have to qualify. I think anybody who picks up the microphone and makes an attempt is funny. Like I say, that some of the mainstream comedians, I don't like this term mainstream. Some white comedians, and their circuit is called mainstream, and black comedians to go onto the mainstream for the wider acclaim. Just don't do it for me. And the state of black comedy is very healthy. Obonjo, you got to remember when I started, I was second generation. There's only about 3 or 4 before me. There was an African comedian called Sheila Hyde. It was a writer. It was only her and Angela Marr. There only made 2 black female stand-ups. And Sheila Hyde, I don't know where she is now. Angie persevered or continued, because Angie also knew that she had a big following in the black community.
Yeah.
It's whether Angie could take her laid-back, acerbic wit over to the white circuit. But Gina's come, and Judy Love is there now, and others. It remains to be seen if you're in your 50s, unless you're going to acclimatise with a sitcom, whether they're going to give you an opportunity, because they expect you to be loud, to be laughing. When when people become entrenched in that type of comedy, it's hard for them. You know, so you've got Mark Thomas, who's not on TV anymore, but you've got Jack Whitehall, who's a different comic from
Mark Thomas.
You know, it's, you know, but they're different white comparisons. You know, we are. I love Omid Djalili. He had a pilot on the BBC. They only gave it one run and didn't give him a second one. I love Kyan Prince. I absolutely felt that give him a second or third series. But again, the humour was racial, topical. He didn't get an audience. What happens? No second series, no third series. If you put him on Channel 4 at 11 o'clock at night, and if Kyan started cursing and reinforcing every stereotype, I guarantee you'd be on season 10.
Yeah.
That's the difference, Obonjo. Obonjo, no disrespect, so I know you've got to be diplomatic and tactical. Make President Obonjo a paedophile. Make him a rapist, and you watch your numbers grow.
Oh dear.
You can't even comprehend that, can you?
No, that's not me.
but you make him corrupt. I mean, really corrupt, and reinforce really strong black stereotypes. And you watch yourself doing roll golf days at Windsor, and you'll find the corporate things you will get will absolutely make you a standout.
No, and it has to be comedy with a conscience. Comedy with a conscience.
No, that's your opinion.
Sorry?
Not everyone's got that. Not everyone's got that.
Give me a few minutes. Comedy with a conscience. Give me a few minutes. It has to be comedy with a conscience or none of it. And I think this has always been my challenge. Look, this has been fantastic. So what whether you're in a position to say what does the future hold for you? What are your plans?
I'm lazy. I'm writing a play, another one. Got one that was waiting to go on before lockdown, but lockdown came. So it's been over a year I've had to wait. I'm retuning my pantomime, Josie and the Multicolour Weave, and seeing if we can get into 2022. I think 2021 people, maybe families might want to come out at the end of the year, but for 2022, certainly. I'm very lucky, Obonjo, I write. And so, if you know, for some comedians, this is all they have. You going from gig to gig. And that's why they often say that comedians are often suffering from depression or they're sad. But yeah, I'm sad sometimes, but if I'm sitting on my laptop and I'm typing and I'm writing and someone tickles my funny bone, I just imagine the audience are there laughing at the line I'm coming up with. Then I also get to work with and join up with other talented performers. I make phone calls to them and say, I've got an idea, what do you think? As long as they prove not to be difficult to work with, because we're all at the same level. We don't outrank, we don't outstrip each other. And as long as we are at the same level, then my brother, I'm delighted. I'll work with anybody, as long as you leave that ego at the door and you let us get together in the realms of entertainment. I noticed we haven't spoken about COVID. We haven't spoken about the journey back. But you know, Obonjo, my mind is, you know, I can talk about anything and anybody. But I must say, I am proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm really proud of what you're doing. When I catch your skits, and the way you've decided that, you know what, I talk about comedy with a conscience, but I am comedy with a conscience. And I really look forward to seeing you one day on Live at the Apollo. I really do.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. I'm going to ask you another question.
Yes, sir.
Have you really met Serena Williams?
Well, I don't like to talk about my private life, but obviously, for legal reasons, let's just say we had a good time. It was what it was.
They are so, you see, it's really interesting because my comedy started by me photoshopping myself on other people's bodies. And
well, fortunately, I haven't been doing that. Unlike you, mine is a genuine story.
Are you sure?
Of a tennis player who wanted me. I think what it was is she was just after my money. That's what it was. She just wanted my money.
Really? Yeah. So no, on a serious note, Jack, because it's so it looks so convincing. Honestly, you should think of a show on Serena Williams.
People told me to do that. I mean, you know, what it was that I'm an attention seeker, and unapologetically, I love black women. And I had to find someone in the public eye that I could pretend I was having a relationship with.
Do you think
who else? The dominant tennis player in the world. Some people were like, ugh, you're better off Naomi Campbell. She's too beautiful. Serena and Venus are beautiful. In my eyes.
No.
In fact, like my mother, all black women, all women, whatever, but all black women to me are beautiful.
On a serious note, you think she knows? She think she's saying all these photoshops?
I would imagine I've heard from lawyers about you know, someone said to her, Geoff Schumann, and she said, oh, is he a German composer? But it provided so much entertainment. You know, I remember Toju contacted me and said, look, let's write a script and do something.
No, I genuinely believe, honestly, I genuinely believe you should write. It's so convincing. You should consider
maybe. Maybe there's other fish to fry, but maybe.
Yeah, while she's still,
because now she's got a husband and a baby. I'll have to be a home wrecker. So I probably need to find. I probably need to find another black female, Oprah, who's not married, got no kids. I probably have to try something like that.
I don't see. I don't know why I don't see you with Oprah. I see you. I don't see that working.
That's where comedy works sometimes. When you're so delusional. Can you imagine me saying, Oprah, I broke up with her because she was after my money? I mean, really?
Yeah. I have this thing I've been working on.
Careful before someone steals it.
Oh, that's true. Let me not say anything. Anything. I'll talk to you outside. I'll tell you after it.
You can hint at it. You can hint at it, but you know what?
I'm thinking of going on a DNA test to find out who my real father is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if I was you, leave it there, because somebody will, Obonjo, as you start to grow in prominence. Oh, that's a really good idea. Oh, I like that DNA test. Oh, and then you'll be sitting there like, I know that came from me.
Yeah, I know.
Have you been a victim of plagiarism at all?
Yeah, it's not.
Let me put the cat amongst the pigeons and switch it now.
President
Obonjo, have you seen anybody attempting to do the character that you do?
Definitely, Colonel Banjoko, who has not been seen since it was announced.
Elaborate. I don't understand. What's on?
Well, we're talking about, now you're interviewing me, we're talking about 2 years ago. They made an announcement that they had created an African dictator.
Who made an announcement?
E4 and BBC Studios made an announcement.
Okay.
That they're creating a character, and it's a sitcom on TV, and the name is Colonel Banjoko, an exiled African dictator, and he's going to have a chat show, and he will be interviewing guests. That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's
there was a sitcom on Channel 4 called In Exile.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
one season, and it got panned.
Yeah, it got panned. Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
But it was, for me, things are getting better now with the likes of Dame Baptist and Mo Gilligan being on TV.
Yeah.
But at the time that happened, it felt like they had two black people fighting for vibranium, and the vibranium was sitting in the BBC. They got two black actors, even though I'm not an actor, he's an actor, fighting to get this.
Did they never consider you for the role?
They never considered me. They didn't even believe, they didn't know about me. That was what they were saying. But how can you not know?
What was the outcome? Did they make the program? Are they making the program?
I have no idea whether they're making the program. I know they made a non-TV
transmissional pilot.
Yeah, but it wasn't broadcasted publicly. My understanding is that the pilot wasn't great. It was shit for those who saw it, and they're not doing it anymore. It's shelved.
Wow.
Shelved.
Well, it is what it is. So with ideas, time stands still for nobody. So whilst things are current and relevant and hot, you've got to get in there and do what you need to do ASAP, my brother. And that's the whole thing about getting camera crews and getting people who can edit and asking will they come in and film stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Look, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
You. I think we've broken the record. We've done more than an hour.
We could have been here till Monday. speak to the way I speak. Hey, Obonjo, honestly, I really appreciate you reaching out. I so hope to work with you in the not too distant future.
I certainly want to do more of this. It's really interesting that like I said, I started in the black comedy circuit and then moved into the white comedy circuit. But I have not forgotten my people. I mean, you were talking about black comedy gigs, and I remember you must know Junior Booker. You know,
New comic, yeah. I don't know him personally. I know
oh, okay, yeah. And I remember him inviting me to do one of his gigs, and I said to him, "I'm gonna die here." I'm literally gonna die here. They're not gonna get me. It's different, totally different. And he said, "Obonjo, you are gonna do it, and you're gonna do half an hour or 40 minutes." And they got me. They really got me, and it was just so funny to see. I don't do that many black comedy gigs. Not that I don't want to, but it's just what it is. It's just what it is. But I think there are opportunities coming in the forefront once the lockdown is over, definitely. And you've just reminded me, I need to reach out to Toju, Mr. C, comedian. I want to get them on my podcast. I want to hear their views. It's really important to hear their views.
Remember, you control the medium. You set the narrative.
Yeah,
whoever you want to get on, the worst they can do is tell you, not for me.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Well, someone has already told me not for me, so that's fine.
When you get what's due to you, Obonjo, they'll come back to you and say, "What time? When do you want me on?"
It's too late then.
Like the elephant with the knowledge, keep it in, my friend. Hold it in the trunk and slap them with it.
And on that note, I hope if that's because you say you're a bit lazy, but if my followers or audience members want to follow you or hear about your story or hear about your projects, where can they find you?
Twitter, Geoff Schumann. Instagram, Geoff Schumann. Geoff with a G, surname Schumann. Although I'm old, so I spend more time on Facebook. Easy medium. I very rarely tweet. Although I do follow people, and then people I do like, I will compliment them. I think sometimes you need some reinforcing and assertion that people like your work. And my website, www.geoffschumann.com, and you can check out my wind-up, my legendary phone calls. I've got my own YouTube channel. But, you know, it's for me, I'm going to go back on radio in about a month and then rebuild the profile in the mediums that I know. But you've got to have a product. And if I can get one hit script, I'll probably have to put it in someone else's name because I look at it, oh, Geoff Schumann. I'd have to put it in Obonjo's name. Like I say,
but I was about to end the podcast, but you keep talking about if it's in your name, you say you're outspoken. What's wrong with being outspoken?
Not for the suits, not for people. Because if people feel you're difficult to work with, or if they don't like you in general, when it comes to the ears of the gatekeepers, white people, they'll go and tell them, "Nah, I don't like him. You're better off going with so and so." I remember years ago, and I've always been a writer. Another performer, well known, had asked for me to write to do some script stuff for a pilot they were doing, and he just came back and said to me, "I don't know who you've upset, but when we mentioned your name, it was." and that woman who was anti me is now in a prominent position at the BBC.
Oh, yeah.
So I've never had a conversation with her. Don't know her, but my persona on radio, I'm quite challenging as a talk show host. I don't take any prisoners, and I proved that I can get a big audience by just being me. And all I can do is just be me. But it's in the memory bank. So if ever I got anywhere and I was on a ladder and someone showed me her, I would tell them, "This is the woman who told so and so she didn't want to work with me. Keep the project." Time up, may happen one day.
It's time for you to rename yourself Geoff Schumann Obonjo. They probably, but maybe they might not even want to touch Obonjo too, just because of all the issues 2 years ago.
It is what it is. As long as you know you can write.
Yeah, definitely.
And with your right, you're writing your truth. Thank you for giving me over an hour. I've really enjoyed myself.
Look, I have enjoyed having a chat with you, and I'm sure we will talk soon. Folks, the podcast has now ended. I want to thank Geoff for his time. An hour is no joke. It's been a really interesting conversation. Very outspoken comic. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me say that I see him as the Donald Trump of the comedy industry. You know, very outspoken, doesn't he?
I didn't realize I was a pussy grabber.
Grab a pussy. And on that note, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you.
Take care, my brother.
Thank you, Geoff.